Hey, Keith Townsend, principal of the CTO Advisor. Nice impromptu CTO dose on the road. Mike, you're vaccinated?
I am.
Man,
Thank God.
Man, it's good to see you, man. When was the last time I've seen you?
I think we were talking about it's been at least probably a year and a half, 2 years. We were talking last time we were here was for a Comvault event in National Harbor.
It was for a Comvault event in National Harbor. That was the last time I was in DC, and the first time I was in DC since we moved from the area 9 years ago.
Right.
You grew up up the road in Baltimore. So, new role at Comvault. We'll get into that, some other day. You've only been there 13 days of this recording. So I'm not going to put you under any pressure about talking about how does metallic and the strategy around tier 1 storage go together. We'll talk about that.
We'll figure that another day.
We'll figure that out another day. What we wanted to
Once
talk
I
about,
actually figure what that is, more than 13 days in.
So the other option, we could have talked about your invention. Was it Slovenia or was it
Slovakia? Bratislava, Slovakia.
Well, we'll save that for
that's
another day.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another day. But
that's with a couple of drinks sometimes.
That is with a couple of drinks sometimes. And I usually hear that story after a couple of drinks.
Normally, it's
so this was the first time I actually heard the story without a couple of drinks.
It's probably the first time you remember the story fully.
Yes, it is. So with that, I want to talk. Part of the CTO Advisor road trip is have more impromptu conversations just around stuff.
Right.
We're talking about the Jeep. We're in a period of time that you're getting, basically, you told me you're getting what you paid for your Jeep?
It's insane. Yeah, the market for used Wranglers is so hot right now that I bought it 2 years ago, and when I was talking to people and I literally walked into CarMax and they made me an offer for what I paid for it 2 years ago, 20,000 miles later. So it's tough to say no. That is tough to say no. So hopefully we'll see new Jeep pictures. Oh, I will have. I'm hoping it is going to be in by August timeframe. That's the thing. I ordered a brand new one in, so it'll be. We'll see what happens.
That's a long time to go without Jeep, though.
So this one's not getting sold till literally the day I end up picking the other one up.
Okay.
So
right.
Or the day before or something. Maybe a couple days before, but it won't be long.
All of the Jeep fans in the V community started to worry a little bit.
They probably would, although I think a few of them are going to give me a hard time because it's the new hybrid. So I went with the you can literally take it on a trail and not hear it. So it ought to be interesting going on all electric and see what the guys think.
That would be interesting. There's something about, I'd love to hear the experience because there's something about hearing the RPMs of the engine, I would imagine, and doing something and not hearing that and then having that same activity has to be kind of weird.
Yeah, from what I've read, you instead of hearing the engine that you're normally hearing and a little bit of nature,
right?
You hear the rocks moving under the tires. And you hear branches as you drive over them. If they break on the ground, you're like, well, that might be interesting.
So we haven't planned any of this conversation, and I think this is one of the things that we miss about in-person events.
Oh my God, yes.
Just the impromptu nature of talking about Jeeps. We were in Philly a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to Josh Bennett, and we were talking about egg farming and the impact of COVID-19 on egg farming and inability to package eggs. And for egg farmers not being able to sell eggs, even though people needed the eggs. And that ended up
I get it, yeah. It's supply chain issues.
And then we ended up talking about Microsoft Azure and their inability to meet the demand spurred on initially by COVID and how the real world met the cloud. So here, we're talking about the same thing. Like, when do you think events are going to come back? When will people, other than the folks like me going out and renting or buying a RV and talking to people in real life, when are we going to see each other?
I think we're getting close. I do. AWS announced that reInvent's going to be in person. Mm-hmm. The question is how many people show up. I think that's, while companies are thinking about doing it, I know that like Comvault's looking at another kind of hybrid style event potentially that you get some people in person, maybe smaller groups. I think we have to. I think the allure of, hey, I can do this all virtual, wore off real quick.
Right.
I'm pretty sure none of us, especially you lose the hallway conversation. You lose all that interaction. You can't. One of the big benefits, even as an attendee, if I was going to a show, and see, we did a ton of shows together, and most of the time I was there with a vendor or as a reseller working it more. But even when I got to go as just a attendee, I did a couple Gartner shows that way that I would go, and the best part was not the sessions per se. I can watch those.
Right.
But it's that right after session, being able to go up and have a chat with the person presenting, or that you may have talked to before. You're never going to get that on virtual. You're never getting that. You're never getting the experience of walking around. Like, how they're going to do a trade show floor is going to be interesting. Like, they used to pack as many people as they possibly could into that small space, or large space, depending on the show. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that and people feel comfortable.
So there's obviously the negative parts of the events, and then there's the positives. When you were at your last company, you guys supported the CTO Advisor hybrid, the CTO Advisor virtual conference. We got to get a lot of underrepresented folks into conferences that couldn't normally go to conferences.
True.
Or even present at conferences. People who weren't comfortable, we could work with them to edit their content and get it to the point that it was super finished, and they were able to do that. Where do you see like the best of both worlds melding? And I'm having a tough time for the sense of it, because there's some people who love virtual conferences for some reason. I don't know who those people are, but they do. I don't get it.
I do think some people love it though because they weren't able to do conferences generally.
That's a good point.
I think a lot of the people people that would go to conferences or work them normally, I don't think said that. I don't think we got that at all. But if you were working for a government agency, or you were working for a smaller company that wasn't willing to send you to a show, you got to get that content virtually. So I think you got those people. Interesting you said about new speakers and you got to get it polished. The weird thing is, for those of us who have been speakers at Planet conferences,
hated it.
We didn't get that. So the number of times where I had to like speak for a virtual conference and I do something and I'm like, I hate how this came out. Like I would watch the video and be like, I'm just not happy with it. It didn't matter that much in all reality. I don't feel like a lot of people truly would have watched it, so it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, I question the numbers on. I question a lot of these virtual conference numbers. I put on a virtual conference. I kind of know what it's like. If there's no interaction, people kind of, it's a thing that's running on the side, maybe, while they're at their desk.
It's a thing we talk about now, even looking at like metrics for webinars. So like, well, these work great. People stayed on them for 40 minutes of the 45-minute webinar. And I'm like, they're all at home. They put it on their second screen and kept going. Like, they might have had it on mute. Like, that doesn't say they were engaged. Like, that used to matter.
Right.
That used to give us a number that we could tell. Now, I don't think it does. I do think we may start seeing the idea of a blended event is the only way I can see that people are really going to be happy with it. And if it's a U.S. event, say it's in 5 cities, challenges, it's more expensive for vendors.
Yes, it is.
So it's smaller trade shows, floors potentially. It's local. You can get your sales team to maybe do it almost like VMUG size at that point, larger VMUGs, maybe the size of what the user cons at times have been, some of the smaller user cons, maybe what it is in each city. And if you have 6 of those, but maybe the keynotes are telecast, or there's certain sessions that you walk in. I mean, in all reality, they've done it at other reInvent a couple years ago. When I was there, had their overflow was set up like a silent disco.
Yes.
I mean, I remember you walk in and they hand you a set of headsets and you're watching it. And
there's like 4 screens, or maybe it was even more than that. Maybe it was like 6 or 8, and you tuned the channel to the session you wanted to watch.
Right. So it was the same as sitting at home doing it at that point on it. So, but could they do that at the local sites? So realistically, a company could put on 7 sessions going on at the same time, maybe 1 or 2 live, maybe your city has one live, but if you've got a studio or a place to do the recordings, or that they're simulcasting from those locations. So you have your choice. You sit there and watch the guy local, or you switch over and you toss a headset on and you watch the guy in Seattle that's presenting. So I think they could do that and get smaller groups. It's a change of pace to do it, and I don't know whether people are ready for that either yet.
Yeah, we're we're targeting VMworld is in October, and I had this idea last year and I didn't execute upon it because I put out kind of a poll or survey, and people weren't ready. We weren't where we're at today, where even in small groups, especially inside, people were comfortable meeting together. I think people are now more comfortable meeting together in smaller groups. So we're going to do kind of a augmentation to VMworld, where we're going to have some people local in Chicago, or wherever we're at, and then we're just gonna put on our own little mini conference, because I think the most powerful growth opportunities in my career have happened at conferences, in the hallway tracks. I know people who've gotten jobs. I've gotten opportunities. I think the only reason I was on the Cube is because I ran into Stu at VMworld or some other event,
right.
And that just would not, it would have been in Stu's mind to reach out to Keith, but it was him physically seeing me.
Let's talk.
Oh yeah, that's right, Keith. I meant to reach out to him, see if he was interested in hosting the Cube.
Right. Yeah, I think we definitely get those. Heck, some of the people I've met on. You mentioned kind of the Jeep community as we started on. And most of those guys, that's how I knew them. I mean, I've gotten to the point where there's friends from all sorts of other companies. I've vacationed with them at times. Like, we've done trips with it. My wife knows them and their family own it. I know next week, I'm going to see Tim and Jody Antonowitz are coming into town. So I'll see them. But really, I wouldn't have known Tim. I mean, was it Simplivity? Was it HPE? Would I have known him necessarily if it wasn't for a trade show? Probably not.
So we went to Pumla Schmidt's house. We went to Luigi Danicos' house. We went to we'll meet a couple of people here locally. The point is that, to your point, a lot of our extended friends are in this community. Yeah. So when I pitched this idea to Melissa, or Melissa pitched this idea to me, we're both like, yeah, let's go out and let's see our friends, because we haven't seen them in over a year. And it's not just the professional relationships, it's the personal relationships that you develop. I'm a little bit bummed that so many Jeep people in our community, because my wife really wants a Jeep. And after seeing Luigi's Jeep and now seeing your Jeep,
I mean, you could have got a Gladiator to tow this thing with. I'm just saying.
That would be stretch. I think that's still stretch.
Yeah, it probably would be tough.
But she did ask. I mean, she was like, "Can we tow it?"
The Gladiator will do, I think, 6,500 pounds.
This is 7,500.
Yeah.
So
you might have had to get a slightly smaller one.
She actually,
there's a compromise.
That was her argument. Is like, we could have gotten the Bambi, which is the smaller version of the Airstream.
You still wouldn't have been able to take a shower.
I still would not be able to take a shower. The teenage me would be happy. Not so much the adult Keith. No, that is not happening. So, Mike, where can people stalk you online if you still do the online thing?
So I'm probably not as active as I used to be.
No, you're
for
not.
Sure. Honestly, with the new job, it's probably less and less. But obviously, I'm on Twitter still. It's M Letschin, Instagram, Facebook, wherever on that. I do still do. I have a blog that's out there, the solutionsarchitect.net, but I think the last post I put up was well over a year ago. So, in all reality, it's probably a lot of it. It's either through Twitter to find me for sure. I still track it a good bit, and obviously LinkedIn. I'm probably on LinkedIn more than I am the others.
It's super practical. People tease me about it, but LinkedIn is, it's where I'm getting this type of interaction, the closest thing to this type of interaction in my professional network.
Yeah, I start seeing that. I'd say so there. Otherwise, I mean, in all reality, hopefully we start seeing each other face to face again. I mean, you mentioned VMworld. We are still looking at doing something for VM Underground around VMworld this year. We'll see what we're going to do. We did a little bit last year with some of the Orbital Jigsaw guys. We're still working out what we're going to do this year. Would them stand virtual again? Who knows? But maybe it's little happy hours in multiple cities that we get some sponsors and we can dole out some event money for a bar tab somewhere if people want to all get together at the same time or something. We're still working it out.
I miss VM Underground. If you want to find out more about the CTO Advisor, if you have comments about hybrid events, virtual events, in-person events, DMs are open at CTO Advisor on Twitter, thectoadvisor.com road dash trip to follow these and other conversations around the road trip. Talk to you next CTO Dose.